Hello and welcome, my noobsicles who just want to be licked and get all warm in my mouth. Today we've got a chimps game where we do 0 cuts. This video is designed for newer players, not for pros, probably not even for intermediate players that can easily take down chimps by themselves, but for newer players that just kind of want to learn how to play the game a little bit. What I want to do is I want to kind of go over the basics for you guys, at least as well as I possibly can, and talk about how to become a better BTD6 player in the process, talk about some of the better upgrades in the game, kind of how to buff them and make sure that they're working properly for you. So, like I said, if you're an expert or whatever, just kind of leave. If you want to press like before you leave, that'd be cool, but you probably don't need to watch this unless you like hearing my voice or something like that. So I highly recommend, believe it or not, a newer player start with Quincy. Why? Because he's got every type of popping power, and he can start off the game very easily. Like, we can save up a good amount of money here without too many issues. We can take down round 9 and everything, and even on the harder maps, like intermediate maps and advanced maps, you can still do a Quincy start in most situations and still have him just easily take them down, which is really, really cool. The next thing I would highly recommend is almost always, because you guys are newer to the game, you're probably playing beginner maps. And on almost every beginner map in the game, there's a good spot for a tack shooter, alright? So I would say in like 95% of situations, just get a tack shooter. Alright, it's really simple. Now, you can go for any upgrades you want to for your tack shooter, but I'm going to recommend one in particular. You're going to go for a faster shooting, even faster shooting, and then you're going to start going for the bottom path upgrades, the more tacks, even more tacks, and the tack sprayer. And eventually, later on in the game, we're going to get an overdrive, but for right now, this is all you need. This is what you need to kind of get started in the game. So, check this out. We're coming up on 2 harder starting rounds here. We've got round 15 coming up, which is the first time we see pink balloons, which means quick balloons that can actually sneak through your defense. Pink balloons are the fastest balloon in the game, so you gotta watch out for those puppies, right? And usually you'd want something that's sort of accurate against those balloons, like dart monkeys or boomerangs or snipers. But in this situation, the tack sprayer is just so good, he's gonna take down most of the balloons, Quincy's gonna clean up the rest. And look at that. Easily taken down around 15, kind of at the beginning part of the game here. Now, what's next? After you get your tack sprayer and your Quincy, what should you build? Well, I'll be honest with you guys. You could just easily stick with primary monkeys and beat the game. You could easily stick with militaries. You could easily stick with just magics. I want to kind of go for everything. I'm going to give you guys everything that I possibly can for you. So, the next thing I'd recommend, though, is if you're unsure, go for a Spike Factory. This is such a weird tower, and this is a tower that a lot of people probably wouldn't recommend because it's not very efficient. You might actually have a Spike Factory that you spend $850 or $1,080 on, and you might get 0 pops on it for pretty much the entire game. But you know what it does do? You've only got 1 life. And this is a really, really, really nice safety net to have. Because if anything sneaks through, a random pink, or a random blue, or a random yellow, you could easily lose the game. But not today, because we have Spike Factory. So we're safe now. We don't have to worry about things anymore. It's not like nothing can sneak through, but it's way, way, way harder when you have a Spike Factory in the back of the map. So what's next? We need to worry about different types of popping power. And I think that's one thing that newer players kind of worry about. I say that Quincy has all types of popping power, but the one thing that he doesn't have early game is lead popping power. So you're going to have to get lead popping power somehow. That's kind of up to you on what you want to go for. But even though it seems a little bit weird, I'm going to go for something that I just recommend to a lot of players. We're going to go for a boomerang, Dexter or tack shooter, and I'm going to go for a red hot rings. All right, believe it or not, I'm going to go all the way up to a Kylie boomerang. This is a really good starting tower on a lot of beginner maps because he hooks back and kind of shoots back into himself. And believe it or not, on most beginner maps, you just have so much map that is kind of like all over the place that you're just going to be able to pop things. And then because of right now, we want to keep our Kylie boomerang being good, we're going to go for faster throwing and even faster rangs. But of course, it doesn't really matter too much for cross path. You can go either way, kind of depending on how you're feeling. And this is actually a really awesome start. Like, nothing's going to kill us. We've got lead popping power, we've got camo detection, we've got a residual camo detection and kind of a safety net here. This is just a good start to our game. If you're unsure on how to play BTD6, start with this, and then just go from there. Build whatever you want. Just test out towers. See what works for you. That's one thing that I noticed that a lot of newer players often do, is they'll find out something that works for them, and then they'll do it over and over and over again until eventually it doesn't work, and then they'll try to adapt that strategy mildly to force it to work, when that's not what they should be doing. What you should be doing is exploring. Maybe not as much on chimps mode compared to unpoppable or hard, but you should be exploring different options for yourself. See what's going to work for you. After you get a good setup and get a good combo that actually works for you, test the other things out. See if you like it. See if it works. See if it works long term. See if it just works for a couple of rounds. You'll never know what's going to happen here. But, of course, if you've been playing the game for many, many years like I have, you probably have a pretty good idea of what to expect out of things, so yeah. But what we're going to do next is we're going to start upgrading. And this is something that I recommend to a lot of players. Whenever possible, It's better to build less towers that are more highly upgraded than it is to just build a bunch of random crap all over the place. All right, this seems like a weird thing, but try to push the 4th tiers, try to push the 5th tiers whenever possible without going too crazy. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to go for an overdrive. We're going to go for our Moab press because the first Moab's coming out around 40. And then, believe it or not, I'm going to whip out a Ninja Elk combo. This is sort of late for a Ninja Elk combo, but I still recommend it to a lot of players just because it's just solid overall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my Ninja right here. I'm going to upgrade him up to 4th tier whenever I get the money. And I'm going to go for the bottom path, seeking Shuriken and Caltrops. And then I'm also going to alchemize. And I'm going to talk about alchemization and buffing in just a second here, but it is really important to make sure you're going to be a good BTD6 player. So let's just throw the Elk down. Let's start talking about these buffs. So the way the Elk is going to work is usually he's going to be able to buff about 1 to 2 towers. All right, so so when you put him down, you want to put him down close to 1 to 2 towers. If you really only want 1 tower buffed, for example, if I only want my Ninja buffed, I don't care about his pop power. I care about his buffs. I'll just put him right here. But if I want 2 towers to be partially buffed, I would go for something like this. Now he's going to buff mostly my Ninja, but also a little bit of Quincy, and that works for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from Blue Jitsu, and we're going to start talking about this buff over here. So top path Alchemists are the key to pretty much everything. Throws a special brew to nearby monkeys, giving them extra damage, range, and attack speed. Great. You can go for a stronger stim, which gives them an even more powerful effect on the targets, and lasts even longer. Now, you don't actually need to know what any of these things do, but you do need to know kind of how they work, so you can kind of make sure you're doing the best that you can be. And to be the best that you can be, buffs are important. Elk is probably the most difficult tower to understand, but also the most powerful tower in Bloons Tower Defense 6. It seems ridiculous to say, but if you're buffing your things properly, you're going to absolutely dominate everything. Now, you can see everything started kind of going down pretty easily and all that stuff, so I'm not too worried about it, but let's talk about how these buffs work. So usually the way they're going to work is they're going to last for a certain amount of attacks. It's kind of like a time thing, but it's going to be a certain amount of attacks that you're able to throw out over here. And when I talk about an attack, it's literally a single thing getting shot out. So for example, if you have a dart monkey and he shoots out a triple shot, it's not like he's shooting out 3 different attacks. That's one attack of 3 darts. And because that one attack of 3 darts is shooting out, we don't use up the Elk very quickly. Just like a ninja is shooting out many shurikens in a single shot. So we don't use up our alchemy very quickly. He's able to kind of keep most of the alchemy. On the other hand, something like a super monkey, which shoots extremely quickly with a lot of darts, is not something that's all that great to alchemize. It's not like he's horrible, but he's going to be shooting out so many darts so quickly that the alchemy is going to wear off quickly before it actually ends up being good. So usually not worth to go for that thing. Alchemized, at least. So you want to pick towers like, for example, Attack Shooter, which shoots out many projectiles in a single attack, or a Ninja, which shoots out many projectiles in a single attack. Even something like a Monkey Ace, you can alchemize those guys pretty effectively, like a bottom path Monkey Ace, or even a top path Monkey Ace. If you alch those guys properly, not that bad. Another tower that surprisingly, which doesn't follow the rule, that's very good to alchemize, something like a Ninja. Bouncing Bullet, not a Ninja, a Sniper. Bouncing Bullet snipers, for whatever reason, somehow just become absolutely dominant when you alchemize them. So, yeah. So you can alch a lot of towers in this game. There's probably about half the towers in the game where you probably should alch them, and there's probably half that you probably shouldn't. I don't want to go too crazy in every single possibility here, but just want to throw out there that that is a possibility to alch a lot of towers, and you really need to test out and see what works for you. All right, so I told you guys push it. Push it whenever you can. Well, we got $25,000 right now, which is pretty freaking sexy. Got to admit it, right? And whenever you can, push it to a 5th tier. We're going to go for Attack Zone. Early game, 58. This seems kind of weird, but now we've got a 5th tier. So what do we do with it? We buff them. We buff them with whatever we can buff with, right? So we're going to elk them. We're going to go for a quick Berserker Brew and Stronger Snim. I will be going for the Stronger Acid and the Perishing Potions. And the general idea with these guys is just make sure most of the time you go for this upgrade, unless you really want to try to buff more towers than 2. You sometimes can pull it off, but not always. And so I'm going to go for both of these guys up, and then I'm also going to buff him in another way. There's another really cool buffing ability here. It's a village. So right around round 50 or so, maybe earlier than that, round 40 if you can get it that early, you can start to go for your village. And the reason why the village is so important is because jungle drops. This, in particular, is what makes a village worth it in almost every single situation. Giving every single tower that you have an extra 15% attack speed makes them 15% more powerful at the very least. Let alone if you buff them with something else, then it makes them more than 15% more powerful. It's kind of ridiculous. And then the second thing that's really important with a village, just give everybody automatic camo detection. Doesn't matter if you have a ninja or have a Quincy who does have camo detection. Now everybody does. Well, everybody's in range of the village, of course. You gotta make sure you pile them up a little bit. But on most beginner maps, it just works out. They end up being so close to each other that it's awesome. So we've got a kind of good conglomerate of things right now. We've got a couple primary monkeys that kind of got us started up in here. Then we started to build a couple magic monkeys to make sure we have the extreme damage to make everything happen. Then we made sure that we supported ourselves with a nice little village over here. Going fancier than that on the support monkeys, probably not necessary for most people. But now you can start to think about your big boys, your military monkeys. Military monkeys are totally fine to be using in the beginning part of the game, totally fine to be using in the middle part of the game, but they usually start to shine near the end of the game whenever possible. Alright. Buccaneers, some of the best 5th tiers. Subs, surprisingly, some of the best 5th tiers in the game, as interesting as that is. Snipers, not so much. Not so much. But Monkey Aces, Heli Pilots, Dartling Guns, Mortars, all really good late game towers. Like, all for 4th tiers and 5th tiers are actually really, really solid. So I feel like I have to go for one of them, but I don't know which one I want to go for. I think I want to go for a Spectre. You know, it's kind of a weird tower, but I like him a lot for beginner players because you don't have to worry about much with him. If you have the village, get him down, and you can go for a quick bottom path here. We're going to go for a Spectre. We're going to go with a Rapid Fire and the loads more darts because we already have the camo jacks. We don't need to worry about that for our middle path. And we're going to wait, and we're going to afford a Spectre a little bit. It's 25,000. A little expensive, but shouldn't be too bad. And what I want to do is I want to put this guy not on center path. I want to put him on figure 8. This is a little fancy. It doesn't really matter what you put him on too much, but usually you want to keep him as close as you can to the back of the map because you want him to hit more Bloons rather than hit more Moabs. And this is kind of where we're at, guys. We're doing fantastic. Usually, I gotta say that the rounds are something that you do have to watch a little bit, and as you become a better player, you're going to start to memorize some of the more difficult rounds in the game. And I know that just throwing numbers at you isn't going to help you play the game, so I don't want to throw out a bunch of random numbers at you and tell you, holy crap, like you suck for not remembering that round 76 is a bunch of regen ceramics. You suck for doing that. That's not the case. You're just learning. It's okay. You're new. Just pay attention a little bit, and eventually you kind of catch on. But I will say that there's a couple rounds that I really, really, really think that you probably should recognize. Late game, round 95 is a crap ton of DDTs, and round 98 is a crap ton of Bloons. If you're going to lose on Chimps mode, those are the two worst rounds to lose on. Round 100 also is pretty terrible to lose on, because you made it that far, and then it's just over. But round 100 is the bad Bloon, and that's just something you have to watch out for, and just know that it's the last round. It's going to be difficult, but in a different kind of way than almost every other previous round. It's pretty much all about Moab damage, and a specific type of Moab damage. It's difficult to do, but it's totally possible. Anyway, what I think I'm going to do is I was talking about getting my Spectre soon. I have the money to just about go for them, but I never finished my buffs. I want to go for primary training and primary mentoring. This gives me an extra buff on my tax zone and a little bit of extra buff on my Moab press, so that's sweet. It doesn't really help anybody else, but it does help my primary monkeys out a lot, and it's totally worth the $3,000 that I spent on this thing. Alright, so this is round 78, which is another big round for us. Bunches of ceramics, and then bunches of camo ceramics, so it's kind of like a copy of round 63 almost, in a slightly different way. And then we've got round 80 coming up with this, oh my god. Like I said, I don't want to throw out a bunch of numbers at you guys and tell you that these are all the rounds you have to worry about and whatnot, but it's pretty easy to remember. Round 40 is a Moab, round 60 is a BFB, round 80 is a oh my god, and round 100 is a bad Bloon. Alright, it's time, guys. Let's go for our Spectre. Here he goes. Like I said, I like this guy on, even on Chimps mode. He's not as effective in the late game, but he's just nice to have around, to just have infinite whatever he wants to do, popping power, cleaning up the Bloons very easily, and it especially combines well with my tax zone, which is good against the Moab class Bloons. Alright, we kind of got almost everything we need. Now it's about deciding if we want to go for more bigger upgrades, like we want to try to save up for something big, like maybe a Moab Dom or something like that. But we spent most of our money. We do get a lot of money in the 80s, but saving up $40,000 in the 80s and in the early 90s is not easy to do. Usually you have to start saving all the way from around 50 to make anything like this happen. So, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for some lower tier, good 5th tier towers. Alright, and I was thinking, what might actually work really, really well for us is probably a glue cutter. Right now, one of the top tier towers in the game is still Bloons Solver. I'm really surprised Ninja Kiwi has not nerfed this yet, but it's just good. And we already have the primary mentoring here, so why the heck not? We're going to buff him even further. I'm going to build him right about here, just in case I do end up having to deal with Bloons over at the back here. I'm going to go for a top path. So we're going to go boom, 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 boom. When we get the money, we're going to go for a Bloons Solver, and then I'm going to cross path with a stickier glue and stronger glue here. Doesn't matter too much, but it's just what I want to go for. All right. So it's hard to explain everything that's possible because there are 20+ different towers, all with 3 different paths, and you could build them in any location. So there's clearly unlimited possibility, but we could literally build 60 different types of paths, let alone 5 different tiers of those paths. The amount of things that you could build gets quite astronomical, and I understand why newer players to the game can just get a little bit overwhelmed and say, I don't freaking know what to build at this point. What do I get, Chris? Well, again, whenever possible, decide how much money you feel like you can save up and what you can make happen, and try to spend that amount of money. I think I could easily save up for a Bloons Solver, so I did. Saved up for a Bloons Solver. And then, when in doubt, if you're in the late 80s or 90s and you're not sure what to build, the number one thing that I'm going to recommend to people is just building another spike factory. If you can build them in range of your village, go ahead, but you want to build a very specific spike factory. You want to build a Moab Shredder Spike Storm combo and use the ability. Alright, it seems goofy, but it's just really, really effective against DDTs, decent against Moab class Bloons, which is usually a pretty hard thing to pop, but also great against the bad Bloon. So it's a simple, easy thing to just throw down and just kind of build it. And what you can do is you can actually build a lot of them as well. You could build like 3 or even 4 Spike Storms if you really want to. It's just kind of works a little bit. So that's kind of it. We got everything kind of set up at this point. The only thing that we really are kind of weak against right now is DDTs. But I'm not even too worried about them because I'm going to build more Spike Storms. But check this out. Even these Moabs and everything going down. As far as pops go, let's look at the pop count really quick on some of our towers. So Quincy, first of all, 100k plus. That is not bad, dude. Pubert! Whoa! 179,000? This is just a random Moab press with faster rings. This guy costs like 3 grand or something. 4 grand. This is like nothing. That's great for the amount of money we spent on him. Especially compared to a tax zone, which costs us like 10 times as much almost. He's only 364,000. That's insane. Ninja, surprisingly, only 44,000. So a lot of players that might actually surprise them a little bit because we did Alch this Ninja, but it's because everything's getting popped so quickly in the front here, we just haven't been able to get to it. Solver, he's only been around for a couple rounds, but check this out. You can see why we built him. He's already got 400,000 pops. It's kind of insane. And my Elks, they aren't doing very many pops, but they do something. Interesting to know. And then the Spike Storm might not look like it's doing much, but I'm telling you, it's just worth it to buy. He's worth. All right, we're going to build a couple more, because why the heck not? Let's go for it. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Just build them, and yeah, we never got extra here. Why the heck not? Let's build another one down here, just because. Like I said, this is probably not the optimal strategy, but when in doubt, if you're not sure, build a Spike Storm and make sure you're willing to use those abilities. You will start to pop things. And when you see the bad Bloon, to try to finish off the game here, you say, oh, I don't like that. Let's build Spike Storms all over the place. And in fact, most of the time, you can actually use 2 Spike Storms, especially if the bad's can actually sneak through defense in the back. All right, there it is, guys. We took down Chimps mode nice and easily, without too many issues. Yeah, that was pretty simple, right? It only took us 18 minutes to take this thing down. That's pretty beautiful. That's very beautiful. I like that. I like that a lot. I thought this was going to take about 20-30 minutes, but no. No, we took it down 18. Easy. So, I don't know if I have any overarching, just automatic, insanely good advice to you guys. Besides, I think you should try out different towers. After you get your setup going, where you like know that I'm pretty safe, or safe enough against this defense, against this Bloon loadout coming out against me, start building random crap and see what you enjoy. See if you like wizards. See if you like mortars. Most people don't. See if you like dartling guns. A lot of players would say they're too micro-intensive. See what you like. But I will say that if you're a little curious, test it out. Try it out. See what's going to happen. See if you're going to like it. Maybe you'll be surprised that you like a tower way more than you thought. Right now, I got to say it, I don't think there's a single bad upgrade in Bloons Tower Defense 6. There are some that are more useful than others, but there are no bad upgrades. There's maybe like 2 that I'm like, I don't get that. Probably shouldn't get that. Not that great, but there's no bad ones. There really is no bad ones. So have some fun, test things out, enjoy the fun, and yeah, have some fun, guys. If you enjoyed, make sure you press that like button for me. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you use my Nexus code. I didn't even cut the video, so use that. Use the Nexus code if you want to, and have a super duper delicious day.